I started staying up late on school nights, just enough to let my grades slip, but not enough to raise suspicion. It worked exactly as I'd hoped. I got kicked off the team, but during one of those late nights when the rest of the house was asleep, I noticed something strange about my mother. At around 3 a.m., I was still awake, watching TV in my bedroom. I always keep my door open just a crack, enough for my cat to come and go as she pleased. I wasn't expecting anyone else to be awake. But then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw something shuffle in the hallway. At first, I assumed it was my cat returning, but when I glanced at the door, I saw her. My mom. She was standing just outside my room, her figure barely visible in the dim light. I waited for her to say something, to ask why I was still up, but she didn't. She just stood there, staring into my room. Something about her posture really freaked me out. She wasn't leaning against the doorframe, wasn't shifting her weight or rubbing her eyes like she usually did when she caught me awake late at night. No, she was standing perfectly still, her arms hanging at her sides. "Mom," I called out. She didn't answer. The longer I looked, the more wrong she seemed. Her head was tilted slightly downward, but her eyes were locked on me. Her face was in shadow, making it impossible to read her expression. And then I noticed it. She looked too tall. It didn't make sense. My mom wasn't short, but the top of her head nearly grazed the doorframe. Maybe it was just the lighting. Could have been sleep deprived. But then, in the still silence of my room, something shifted beside me. I nearly jumped out of my skin, only to find my cat adjusting herself. Relieved, I glanced back at the door. She was gone. The hallway was empty. For a long moment, I just sat there, listening to the house settle around me. I wanted to believe I was hallucinating, that maybe my half-asleep brain had twisted a shadow into something unnatural. I forced myself to lie back down, but sleep never came. The next morning, when I finally left my room, I caught sight of my mother in the kitchen, humming to herself. She was normal, acting like nothing had happened. I hesitated before asking, "Did you check on me last night?" She paused. Then in a voice that sounded just a little too careful, she said, "No, sweetheart, I was asleep." Then just as she reached for her mug, her sleeve slipped back just enough for me to see something. Dark bruises wrapped around her wrists, almost as if someone had held her in place. I opened my mouth to ask, but something in the way she quickly adjusted her sleeve, the way her smile didn't quite reach her eyes, stopped me. I never mentioned what I saw that night, and she never asked why. For weeks after, I started sleeping with my door shut. In 2014, a high school student transfers to a new school halfway through the year. He'd been in the hospital for the past week due to a concussion, though he remembers nothing about the incident. As he walks through the hallways, he notices students staring at him, whispering as he passes. He feels the weight of it, the awkwardness of being the new kid, but brushes it aside. He's no stranger to feeling like an outsider. Later that day, he spots a girl alone in the library, focused on her work. Something about her catches his attention, though he can't explain why. When he approaches, her face goes pale. She stumbles back, knocking over her chair, then bolts for the exit, leaving papers scattered behind her. Confused, he gathers them to return the next day. That night, he looks through the papers and finds the name Emily Liston on an assignment. As he continues flipping through, his stomach drops. Among the stack are several photos of himself, in the parking lot, hallways, classrooms, even the stairwell. He recognizes the locations, but not the moments themselves. The following morning, he storms into the administration office, demanding to speak with Principal Reyes. "I'd like to report Emily Liston for taking these disturbing photos I found." Ms. Reyes examines them, her expression shifting to concern. "These aren't photos of you. They're photos of Emily." The student scoffs. Why would she have creepy photos of herself? Ms. Reyes looks up, her voice steady. "Emily Liston isn't a student here. She died 3 weeks ago, accidentally hit by a driver who was obsessively tracking her location and ran a red light. Does that ring a bell?" "That's impossible. I just saw her yesterday." Ms. Reyes sighs, the truth heavy in her words. "Do you remember why you transferred from your last school?" She pauses, letting the question hang. "Jack, you took those photos. You were the stalker." As the siblings begin setting up their equipment, they're approached by a stranger offering to help. Weary from the drive, Pam gladly accepts the gesture. An hour later, the stranger returns with another man, introducing him as his brother. The two join the siblings by the campfire, and the group chat late into the evening. At approximately 10:45 p.m., one of the strangers suggests they head to a nearby pond to photograph the alligators. Intrigued, the siblings agree, but despite the strangers leading the way, they never reach their intended destination. Suddenly, one of the strangers strikes Pam on the head, knocking her to the ground before quickly handcuffing her. John, caught off guard, reaches for a walking stick one of the strangers had been carrying. He swings it at the attacker, but the struggle is brief. Overpowered by the two, John is quickly subdued and dragged farther down the trail, where he suffers multiple skull fractures and a fatal wound to his neck. Meanwhile, Pam is taken back to the campsite, where she is assaulted by the attackers before being bound and left tied to a tree. For 2 excruciating days, Pam remains tied to the tree until she finally manages to chew through the ropes. Once authorities are notified, a search begins, and within hours, John's lifeless body is discovered. With the help of a composite sketch, investigators home in on Lauren Cole and William Paul. Both men initially denied their involvement, but as evidence mounted, the truth became undeniable. Although Paul was an accomplice in John Edwards' death, Cole was the one who inflicted the fatal injuries. As a result, Paul was sentenced to 5 concurrent life sentences, while Cole received the death penalty.